Hi guys, welcome to the Studio 134 podcast. My name's Alec. This is Mariah. Mariah is one of our staff at NCYFC. Mariah, would you mind telling us a little bit about what you do here?
Yeah, so I've been here for about a year, a little over a year. I am a rebalance coach, and I am also a mentor for DHS and for JJM here.
Awesome. What do you enjoy about your job specifically, and like what you get to do?
I love just being with our kids here and just getting to know everybody and their story, where they've come from. And I also just love meeting the donors, just how close our staff is here. I feel like we're like a family here.
Yeah.
And I just absolutely love that. I've never had that before, so it's really nice.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. With the Top Times and the podcasts we've been doing, we've been trying to kind of link them all together, like different series that ultimately are showing kids and whoever's watching this, like the bigger picture of what it means to follow Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me a little bit about like what have you been taking away from this, and how has that been helping you in your faith?
Yeah, so I absolutely love just listening to everybody else's perspective, their different perspectives, and just seeing what they take away from like the different videos and like the questions that you ask them.
Yeah.
I like to get stuck into my own head and overthink, and it's just nice to hear someone else talk about stuff or say things that I've thought about.
Definitely.
And like sometimes I can relate with them, and so it's nice to just hear that, and it's like it's comforting.
Yeah.
Because we can get stuck in our own ways in our own head, and so I've loved that, and there's especially the scripture that they've shared and their stories that they've shared and where they've come from.
Yeah.
Has helped me a lot. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Have there been like any specific ones that have been like standouts or helpful for you?
Mm-hmm. So for me, I really liked Anthony's and Zaya's when you did the podcast with them. Obviously, I wasn't involved in any gangs like Anthony was, but I just love to see where God has brought him.
Yeah.
And just how much he loves people, and he loves sharing the gospel, and he's just completely different in such a good way. And I love that he's sharing his story, because where we're at, that is a thing, the gangs.
Yeah.
And so it's just amazing to see how strong he is and brave he is to share that. And with Zaya, just like her opening up about where God has brought her, because she did following Jesus.
Yeah, I believe so.
And so just to share some of her walk and her wisdom with you was really cool. And obviously I've grown up with Zaya since we were little. So just seeing where she's at now and how strong she is in her faith and how she just loves people. And it's just amazing to see where they have come and where they're at now. I've really enjoyed their podcasts, the ones that you did with them. So
that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Can you tell me a little bit about like your story? Like, how did you end up here? How did you get involved at YFC? Yeah, why do you do what you do?
Yeah, so
because you have an important role.
So before this, so I'd say in February last year, I was just going through it. Growing up, I grew up in the church, but I never was like that bad kid or whatever. And so I really started doing my own thing, even though I knew right from wrong, as I've like being an adult. I've done things like that, and last year was just really hard for me. And so I finished cosmetology school. I went to UNC for a little bit, and I finished working at Subway. I was there for over a year, and I had just started working at Sunrise Clinic. I was a care manager there, and it was a great place, but I just didn't see myself just being there for long term. And I'm like, I had all these things that I love to do, like music, love doing hair, I loved being around people, I loved kids, I loved doing things and moving, and I loved every day. I loved it. It had to be different for me.
Yeah.
Just to keep my mind going. And so I was just like, God, where do you want me? What do I need? Where do I need to go? Because I'm like, I don't want to be here. I'm not happy. And so it was crazy because when I said that, the same day, Stephen Herrera, who used to do turnaround bikes here, and I used to go to church with him at Greeley First Assembly. We've always kept in touch. He always came into Subway to see me, get some food, and him and his family have been really, really great. He sent me a message, and he was like, I think you'd be perfect for this job. They need more, they're looking for a female, because at the time it was just Megan, and I was like, oh, and he's like, it has all the things you love to do, like ministry, there's music, the kids there, you could teach. Yeah. It's just a really cool place. And I'm like, oh my God, this is an opportunity. It's rare. I have never seen a job like this before.
Yeah.
And so immediately, he sent me the application, and I filled it out right away, and he told me that Jeff was the director here, and I was like, send me his number. So he sent me his number, and I called Jeff right away, and we set up such a time to meet.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the interview, but just so he can get to know me. And I kind of just went from there, and it's the best decision I've ever made. I'm so grateful to be here.
That's awesome. And we're super grateful to have you. We used to be super short-handed on female staff. So it's been a huge blessing here having you and Zaya and Ruthie. So it's not just Megan. That's been
I know.
It's been a huge help. So we're grateful for you.
Thank
for sure.
You. That's awesome.
So this current series we're in, we're talking about seeking shelter, and basically that looks like how do we find our strength in Jesus, essentially? How do we turn to Him when things get hard? Can you tell me a little bit about your story, and has there maybe been a time where you did turn to Jesus, or you should have been turning to Jesus, and you ran the other way? And can you kind of tell me a little bit about what did that look like for you?
So, like I said, I grew up in church. My mom had me at a young age. She was a teen. She worked hard. My bio dad's not in the picture. My grandparents took care of us, my sister and I, because my mom both had us both young. And we had a really strong family, and we're all super close. And so I never did anything crazy growing up. I don't know. I think the most I dealt with just my anxiety and trust issues, just with what I experienced and stuff like that. So it was a little bit difficult, but and I always felt like God was calling me into the ministry, worship and teaching.
Yeah.
And then as I got older, there's just a lot of stuff,
For sure.
We all experience things, and I just, did my own thing, basically, to keep it short. And I was upset and angry and honestly depressed and mad at stuff that was going on in my life with my immediate family, my parents, and, I just didn't know how to handle my emotions, and I felt like everything was falling apart, and it's still, that's kind of still happening now, but obviously I feel a little bit better about it. But I was just like, dang, I'm just want to do my own thing.
Yeah.
And I can't do this anymore. And I've always had God, but I'm like, this isn't working for me right now. And I was like, drinking throughout the week, and abusing that, just to make me feel something else than being just sad and overthinking everything. And I would drive while drinking, and sometimes I'm like, how did I get here?
Yeah.
And there was just, I did things I know I wasn't supposed to do.
Right.
And so I turned completely the other way and became someone who I'm like, this is not what God has called me to be, And so instead of taking shelter in Him, I took shelter in literally everything else.
Right.
And so whether that was a drink or smoking or friends.
Right. You were like trying essentially to like numb yourself and find an escape from the pain. But yeah, like.
And so that's what I did, and it's just because I'm so close with my family, and I wasn't able to be around my family, and just all those thoughts I've had in my head, it just became too much, and so I turned to that instead of turning to Him.
Understandable. Yeah. It's so easy to do that. Yeah. I mean, can you share an example from your life where like you've done it the other way, where something was hard, but you turned to Jesus instead, and I don't know, what was your experience in that?
I think right now, I'm doing that. So, like I said, just with my family situation, it might not be the way I want it right now, and like that feeling lonely is definitely a thing. And you might have like all the friends or family in the world, but it'll never fulfill you here.
Absolutely.
And so, and like I said, not being able to see my family has been hard. But instead of just being like, I'm going to be who I once was or make all these mistakes again, I have to trust Him.
Totally.
And I need to make sure that like, that He's my foundation, and that I take shelter in Him and run to Him, because that not only for myself, but for the kids here.
Yeah.
Because they look up to us.
Absolutely.
And it would we all go through things, but we also know who we can run to. And they don't have that necessarily. Some might.
Yeah.
But if they see us just falling apart, they're like, what's the difference between here and home?
Right.
Like, why are you guys like pumping up the place if you guys do the same thing that we do? And so I want to make sure not only am I trying to run to Him and make sure that He's my everything and my main focus for myself, but for them too, because I want to make sure that they see Him in me.
Yeah.
And that they know that when I'm going through something, I immediately run to Him.
Absolutely.
And make sure that, I go to Him for shelter. Because I don't want to be just like everybody else to them.
Yeah.
And so I think right now in my life, like, I've made that decision, like, I'm going to go to Him. Do I make mistakes? Of course. But I've made sure, like, okay, all I can do is trust You and go to You. And that's all I can do.
Yeah.
To keep myself sane. Like, why do you want to live like that? You know? So, yeah, right now is a good example for that.
Cool. Yeah, I like that. So, going off script a little bit here, but like I had this question from a student the other night, and it kind of just caught me off guard, honestly. So I didn't have an answer for it in the moment. But yeah, I think it relates really well to this. Like their question was, okay, so like if God loves me, why do bad things happen to me all the time? Looking back now, I'm like, dang, now that I have some time to reflect on that, I think I have an answer. But I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on that. Because she's right, bad things do happen to all of us, and life sucks sometimes. Like, so why would God allow that to happen if he does love us, you know?
I think that's definitely asked that question too.
Oh, same. I think everyone does. I think that's a very reasonable question to ask.
Yeah. And I don't know, I think for me, I wish there was like this perfect answer that made me feel like better. Or feel like, I don't know, I guess when you ask someone a question, they give you that direct answer and you're like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm good. But then you get this answer and you're like, I get it, but like why? Like,
Right.
I wish it was different. So it's just like, for me, it's like we live in a fallen world. Nobody's perfect. There's sin. And that's not how God intended it, but that's how it is.
Absolutely.
And so that's just kind of, that is my answer. And I feel like that's what God has just told me, and I just have to trust him. And like there's things that have happened to me where I'm like, why God? Why did this happen?
Yeah.
And how come, like, it's not fair? Like, this person's living a good life and they're being stupid. Like, and all I have done is like trusted you, and this is still happening to me. Like, why? And that's my answer is, this is just what we're living in, the world, and I trust that God has a plan for me and that there's a reason behind this.
Yeah.
And it might not be what we wanted, but I know that God knows everything.
Exactly.
And that he's just going to take care of me. So I just have to believe that.
Yeah.
And that's that. And if I were to sit here and dwell in it, I would literally go insane. And that's what a relationship is. You have to trust, and you have to, there has to be some sort of hope in it. And if there's not, then it's not going to go anywhere positive.
Exactly.
So that's how I would answer it, and that's what makes me feel better.
Yeah.
But I know that's not the answer anyone really wants to hear.
Right. It's not necessarily the answer we want to hear, but I think you're right. Like, I think it is ultimately because of sin. Yeah, which sucks sometimes. But I also heard it put this way this weekend. I was listening to a message, and yeah, basically what they were saying was like, well, basically, to rewind a little bit, he was talking about like when Jesus and his disciples, they were in a boat and they were going across the sea to basically go to another place to share the good news about Jesus there. But yeah, it was late at night. Jesus had fallen asleep, and there was a big storm happening, and basically it was a really bad storm. So all of Jesus's friends are like in the boat freaking out, like, oh my gosh, we're gonna die, like, and he's just there just sleeping, like he doesn't care. And they're like, wake up, like, do you not care about us? Like, can you see that this is happening right now? Yeah, and basically what that pastor was saying was like, sometimes we have to go through hard things because sometimes God has to take us off of the shore and into the sea to teach us things that we can't learn on the shore. And basically what happened there was like, Jesus wakes up and he tells the storm to stop, and the water and the wind and everything just calms and is still, out of just because of the sound of his voice. And I'm not sure he could have taught them that on the sand. Like, it wouldn't have had the same effect on land. So when I heard that, I was like, whoa, that is such a cool new perspective. Like, I've never thought of it that way before. And like, yeah, sometimes we do go through really hard things that really, really suck. But like, fast forward a couple of years or a couple of weeks or months or whatever, like, you can look back and, oh, like, it makes sense now. Like, I want to be here if I didn't go through that thing. And I want to be able to help you with this if I didn't go through that thing, you know? Like,
yeah. And sometimes, like, a couple things is, like, sometimes we need that because sometimes we're ornery. We're human. And you need a little kick in the butt sometimes.
Absolutely.
And that's okay. Also, I think about it where I'm like, God, like, wake up. Like, I'm struggling.
Yeah.
Because, like, I feel like he's not there, but it's just me panicking. Like, because back a while ago, my family and I left my home church, at Bethel Family Praise Center, and when we left there, I was so mad because I grew up there. Like, Zaya and I have been best friends since we were like 2, and when we left there, I was like, oh my God, like, why are we? This is my home.
Yeah.
And I was mad.
It hurts.
And I was like, I don't want to go to another church. And so we kind of floated around for a bit, and we landed at Greeley First Assembly. And, you know, I was able to grow there in so many ways. Finally, like, and you know, so many things happened there. But the one thing is, if I didn't meet Steven Herrera, the one who also worked here, like, I would not be here right now.
Yeah.
If I never had met him, he never would have introduced me here.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be here with you.
Right.
And so it's just crazy. We're like, okay, God, I see, like, it might not have been the best when we left there, but you had a plan. You know, you knew what you were doing.
Exactly.
And I grew a lot and still stubborn sometimes, but I'm not, like, as set in my ways as I was. And I've learned a lot.
Yeah. And his ways are better than our
ways. Yeah. Because if it was my way, it would be completely different. And
absolutely.
So I'm grateful for that. So that's one of those things where you look back and you're like,
right.
Like, I needed that.
Exactly. Yeah. And looking back, it makes more sense to you now, right? Like, yeah, it's cool how God does that. Like, we couldn't orchestrate that on our own, I don't think. And he does that with everyone. Like, it's not just a random coincidence.
He's like, I'm going to pick on you today.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, while we're on this topic, can you tell me, like, are there, like, any examples in the Bible of, like, where someone had to turn to God or should have turned to God? And, like, yeah, why did that stick out to you, and, like, has that helped you in any way?
So, at my church, I am the children's leader, so K through 6. So when I thought of this topic, I immediately thought of, like, the classic story, like Sunday school story that you learn when you're a kid. If you're not familiar with it, it's totally fine. But it's the story of Jonah and the whale. And so this is when God was, like, wanting to show compassion to people of Nineveh, and he was giving them another opportunity to turn from their evil ways. And, you know, he wanted them to know, like, he's the one that created them. He's the one that loves them. And out of all those people, God chose Jonah. And Jonah freaked out and ran the other way. He was like, no.
Like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go there. Yeah.
Yeah, and so God was like, I want you to go to these people in Nineveh and tell them to repent and tell them what's going to happen because there's consequences. And he thought that was too big of a job and got scared and he was like, gotta go.
Yeah.
And so he went on a ship and sailed away from and left the calling that God had placed on his life. And so when he was on this ship, God sent this big storm. And at this point, the ship was going to sink. And so Jonah fell asleep, and the captain and the crew were like, you got to wake up. Like, wake up. Like, and, you know, call out to your God and call out to your God so he can rescue us. And Jonah was like, I'm okay. And he still remained silent with it. And he was like, he had already told them, like, I'm running away from God.
Yeah.
Like, why are you wanting me to call out to him after I just ran away from him?
Right.
Like, I believe there was some embarrassment there, too.
Yeah, probably.
So he was like, just throw me overboard and I'll leave.
Right. He probably already knew, like, oh, I royally screwed up. Like, I'm just going to run from my problems now.
And that was his way of giving up. Like, just throw me overboard. I'm done.
Yeah.
And so when he went overboard, the storm stopped. And then he was swallowed by a huge fish, a whale. Now, people will probably think that's crazy, but
it is.
God can do crazy things.
Right.
So Jonah was like, throw me overboard.
Yeah.
Because, like, I'm giving up. And I don't want to deal with this anymore. And so, yeah, they threw him overboard. And when he went overboard, the storm immediately stopped. And God sent a huge fish and he swallowed Jonah. So, like, if you don't know the story and you're not familiar with the Bible and all that, it probably sounds crazy, like a huge fish swallowing a man, like, but God can do crazy things.
He really can.
To teach us different things. And so Jonah was in there for 3 days and 3 nights. And so this is like, he's just in complete darkness, all by himself. And I don't know if you just imagine that, like being completely isolated or feeling that way.
Yeah.
And I think this is when Jonah realized, like, he needs to give thanks to God in every single situation and realize that God is the one who rescues and saves.
Yeah.
And so after the 3 days, the fish vomited Jonah up and he was finally on dry ground. And even after all of that, like him running away and God giving him another opportunity and him still not taking it, that God once again called him to go to Nineveh. And Jonah went immediately and did what God had called him to do. God wasn't forcing him, and God doesn't force us to do anything either.
Right.
He's not going to push us. It's not a controlling relationship. There's no toxicity or nothing.
Yeah.
You know, and he'll give us chance after chance, and he loves us so much. It's a love that none of us can comprehend, and it's never ending. And he'll always be there for us, but like, he wants us to also chase after him.
Absolutely.
And because it's a relationship.
It is.
It goes both ways. It's not like any other relationship because his love is different. He knows everything about us. He knows what we're going to say before we say it. But the fact that he's still willing to deal with all the stuff that we put him through is just like, why wouldn't you want that, you know?
Right.
And I know, like, with Jonah, like, sometimes we feel embarrassed about saying no or running away. And so we continue to run away because, like, if we're running away, we don't see him.
Yeah.
And we don't have to deal with it. But he's still there with us.
Exactly.
And so that's why I love this story, because it's crazy. It's not like we're going to get swallowed by a whale. But if you think about it, it is very much relatable.
Yeah.
And a lot of us go through it, like with the whole darkness thing. Like, it could just be in our minds.
Yeah.
Or hitting rock bottom. Like, you've done so many ugly, nasty things. Nobody likes you. You feel alone. You feel isolated. Like, it's just so relatable. And in the end, God still loved him. God still loves us. He'll give us another opportunity because he has a plan, a calling for our life. We just have to be willing to run to him and to make the decision.
Yeah.
And know that he's going to take care of us.
Exactly.
He wouldn't call us to do that if he didn't think we weren't capable of it. So.
Wow. Yeah. You're right. I don't think you would either. Wow.
And so also, a verse with that that I really absolutely love is Psalms 91, verse 1 and 2. and said, "Those who live in the shelter of the Most High will find rest in the shadow of the Almighty. This I declare about the Lord. He alone is my refuge, my place of safety. He is my God, and I trust him." And so when I think of that story and this, it's just like, I'm so thankful for him
Yeah.
giving me a place of rest, when all else fails me, when my friends, when my family, when my coworkers, when anybody
Yeah.
fails me, he will always be there.
Mhm.
And I'm grateful for that. Because
Yeah.
what more could you want, right?
Right.
Because all the things of this world are just temporary,
Exactly.
but he's everlasting.
He is.
So
And he's a firm foundation for
Mhm.
us. Like, yeah, like the talk on Friday, like if we build our life on him,
mhm,
we have something to lean on. We have something to hold us up no matter what comes at us, no matter what we get hit by.
mhm,
And he can put those pieces back together so much better than we can.
because nobody can do that.
Exactly.
You can distract yourself, and people can help you pick up the pieces and guide you into the right direction, but they
Right.
can never fix that,
Exactly.
and neither can we. And I feel like I'm guilty of this, like setting really high expectations on people that I love, people that I work with, and my family, like friends and like that, stuff like that. Like I just like put so much pressure on them. Like if you fail me, like then I'm like completely destroyed and I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, how could you do that to me? How could you just, like, if you cancel plans on me, or if you left me, or if you upset me, or you always need to be there for me. Because
Mhm.
if you're not, I'm going to literally explode.
Exactly.
But that's what God is there for. Like, he could be all of that. And it's
Yeah.
just him. And so I think we get distracted by stuff like that, and we put a lot of pressure on people or things
Mhm.
like alcohol, smoking,
Yeah.
drugs, stuff like that. We put a lot of pressure, and we put our focus on different things rather than him.
Yeah.
And I think nowadays a lot of people think it's weird, like you're worshiping a God you can't see, and the stories that are in the Bible that are about him are just like mind blowing.
Right.
And so I get it. It's if you didn't grow up in that, it is hard, but it's the best life you could live.
Absolutely. And like, sure, you can't see God in the physical. Like,
Mhm.
you and I are talking right now. Like, we can talk to God like that. But like,
Mhm.
I can see you right in front of me. You can't necessarily see God right in front of you. But
Mhm.
like, if you read His Word, if you pay attention to what He's doing there,
Mhm.
you'll see Him working around you
Yep.
and in your life.
Mhm.
And yeah, if you're in the Bible, if you're praying, if you're around other people who believe in Him, like, you'll see Him.
Mhm.
Might take a while, but I promise you He's there.
Yep.
So
And it's worth it.
it is. Absolutely.
And if people are willing to put in the work in any other relationship, I know you can put in the work in this.
Yeah.
Some things are different, but it's so much better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, I think that's about all we got for this week's episode. Make sure you like and subscribe to our channel. Hit the bell for notifications, because we want to be able to share more with you. We want to share more what we're doing as an organization, what events we've got going on, and we want to be able to share this podcast more with you guys. And the more you like and subscribe, the more you share it, the more this gets out to people.
Mhm.
Yeah, so we are super grateful for you guys. Thank you for watching, and yeah, we will see you again next week. Thanks for tuning in.